the Jodi Arias murder trial, testimony focused on the timeline of the injuries the victim sustained.
I felt that the gunshot wound may have been last, but at any event, the gunshot wounds and the wounds to the neck would have had to have come after the defensive wounds of the hands.
You were asked about, in terms of sequencing, which came first, which wound came first, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall what your answer was?
I answered that the gunshot was possibly first.
Do you recall relaying the opinion that Mr. Alexander would be conscious after being suffering the shot to the head?
Yes, but that was my opinion at that time.
That was your opinion, but when you were, so you weren't relaying Dr. Horn's opinion, as you said during those transcripts, you were relaying your
I
own?
would say that was my understanding of what the situation was, but I'm not the doctor, I'm not the ultimate decision maker on that.
With me's criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jeff Gold, psychologist Dr. Jeffrey Gardier, and former NYPD detective Harry Houck. I'm going to start with you, Harry. We just saw a detective offering an opinion that the gunshot wound came first, which kind of made a little sense because then he'd be incapacitated, such a big guy, and this smaller woman, wouldn't be able to stab him. And then you got the medical examiner comes out and says, oh no, the gunshot wound was last because of the defensive wounds to the hand. Now, have you ever been asked to formulate an opinion regarding which injuries came first as a detective?
Well, it's very hard to do, and I usually do that on the crime scene. I would sit there and look around, and I would try and piece the crime scene together, all right? And as this detective probably did also, based on the evidence that was at the crime scene, what might have happened first. Personally, I think the gunshot occurred first myself.
Well, so do I, but then, you know, if I'm the prosecutor in that case, you know what I'm doing? I'm saying objection. He is a detective. He is not a medical expert, you know, and get that off the table. All right, I'll move down the table this way. Dr. Gardier.
Examiner. It's not here today.
Okay, let's talk about your field of expertise. This one's a whack job. Yes? No?
Well, here's the thing, and I know at some point we'll be discussing this. Why not an insanity plea? Yes, she's a whack job. Yes, she is crazy. But it doesn't rise to the level of legal insanity.
Right. And Jeff will talk about that, but the other Jeff here, doctor, in terms of your background, this woman hooks up with another guy, you know, shortly after she's allegedly stabs, shoots, and slits the throat of her boyfriend.
Right.
I mean, can you identify these people, you know, in public? I mean, what do they look like?
Absolutely.
Other than a black widow.
Sure. Well, these are people who are sociopaths.
We're looking at a blank scene photo, by the way, excuse me, Jeff, of the home.
Well, how do you go through something like this and then hook up with someone right afterwards? You're smiling, you're dancing, you're singing while you're in prison. All of that is part of that sociopathic personality, antisocial personality.
But what
she is not a schizophrenic, but she is very seriously disturbed.
Yeah, but she doesn't appear to be disturbed. Insanity defense, Jeff, would you go for it?
It ought to be the insanity defense, but she's too crazy to use it. She says, first, I didn't do it. Then she says it was intruders. Then she says it was domestic violence. She tells the court she wants to represent herself. She's wacky, but she's too wacky to get the only defense that might help her, which was she was crazy when this happened.
She's not the right kind of wacky, that's the problem.
We don't know that. Because
we know it.
We don't know it because she hasn't allowed herself to be examined.
We know it. Look at all the, Jeff, look at all the interviews that she's given. Obviously, she's very disturbed, but she's also very manipulative. She's a liar. We see it, but it is not. It does not rise to the level of insanity.
Doesn't the premeditation show that she's not insane?
The fact that she had the premeditation, quite often you don't see them being able to get an insanity
The premeditation and the blaming it on someone else tells me she knows the difference between right and wrong, and that's what she's saying. You know, two guys came in and I got away, you know, or I had to defend myself. She's a calculating widow.
That may be the case, but it's the only thing that would save her is a possible insanity defense, and she's not doing it.
She ain't getting it.
And she's going to get convicted.
Will she get the death penalty?
I think so.
What do you think, Jeff?
I don't think she will get it.
Harry?
I hope so.
Okay, all right, guys, stay with us. We'll talk to you a little later in the show. And up next, for the first time, the attorney for one of the football